Welcome back to another Q&A, questions in alcohol. And like we always like to say, I've got questions and they've got the stuff to talk about, some good alcohol. And we'll be joined here in just a second with John Christie, Director of Spirits for Rogue Spirits out west. And he'll be talking about what all fun things they are doing out there. But don't forget to check us out at Hops Spirits, all one word, on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter. You can also find us on YouTube and go to hopspirits.com to find past episodes of the Q&A, the Bar Conversations podcast, and of course our taste test as well. But like I said, we're here to talk some spirits, I believe, and go beyond Kentucky, as I like to say in this podcast, go beyond Kentucky, but something I think Kentuckians know very well. And John, welcome in.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Jonathan. Happy to be here. You're talking from one of my favorite places. Kentucky is where I got my whiskey bachelor's degree. Basically, it felt like.
It's been known to do that. It did it to me. I was pretty much a strictly craft beer guy, which you guys also have there as well on the ale side. Right. And then I have slowly but surely gone into the whiskey, and it's so funny because when we first moved here, my wife loved the bourbon barrel beers, things like that, and I was like, now that's like what half of my beer fridge is, along with the whiskey surrounding all of it as well. So I think Kentucky has been known to do that once or twice to folks.
Yeah, did it for me for sure. They, getting the first time you go down to Kentucky for me it was about 10 years ago, and the culture, what I call like kind of the bourbon trail was there, but it had not nearly gotten the volume you see now 10 years later. Whether it's mint julep tour bus driving you around, or whether it's you get a chance to meet Freddie at Buffalo Trace, or like the kind of godfathers and godmothers of American whiskey are pretty much living in Kentucky now, which is, you got to go, right? You got to do it all.
Absolutely. And you just never know who you're going to run into sometimes when you're out and about. But, before we get into talking about kind of the whiskey you guys are making out west out there in Newport, Oregon, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Because obviously you have a nice title, Director of Spirits for Rogue Spirits, but you mentioned you've been got the whiskey bug, not I'm sure before that, but you got your full education about a decade ago. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So I kind of have been living in Arizona the last 20 or so years, down in Phoenix and Scottsdale. Kind of got my start in the bar business there, kind of running some lounges and cocktail bars and hotel bars. And then about 10 or 12 years ago, when the whiskey craze started to catch on, I just had a program kind of ended up in my lap. It would say, hey, you got to build out a whiskey program. This is the way you compete now. So I got a crash course in whiskey, like I said, about 10, 12 years ago, where it was really unique for me because it became sort of defined who I was in the industry. I became a whiskey guy, this AZ whiskey guy. That's my Instagram tag, is AZ whiskey guy. And that's kind of in Arizona, that was the guy to go to when you had a question about whiskey, or you needed staff education, or you needed to host an event, or you just wanted to figure out what all these people were talking about when it came to whiskey. And for me, it was like everyone, it's a rabbit hole. I started just trying to get into bourbon and rye and being able to explain it all competently, be able to train people and excite people about how cool whiskey was. The time machine you go through when you get into whiskey, that you start something now, it's like building a cathedral. You don't ever get done usually, especially if you're dealing with scotch and such. But so I ended up working with whiskey, and then eventually I ran a bunch of great programs there, a property called Old Town Whiskey. And then I ended up taking over a craft spirits director for Young's Market, which is a distributor or wholesaler in Arizona, and they opened me up to everybody. So we were selling Buffalo Trace, which was no one really knew Buffalo Trace at the time, so we were helping to build those brands, Four Roses and Barton, and all these great, Macallan and Highland Park and Balvenie, and so all these amazing whiskey resources fell in my lap about 7 or 8 years ago, and so I got the whole thing, and it took off from there. Did a big barrel program at a place called Grey Hen in Phoenix, where we went out and picked about 100 barrels or so, single barrel picks. So I spent about 3 months on the road, just distillery to distillery to distillery, and just learning things and tasting things and building my palate. And I started to realize that the best way to drink whiskey is however you want to drink whiskey, and there's no one to tell you one way or another that you should drink it a certain way. And that became an easy way for me to train people to love whiskey, because they became, excited by my enthusiasm and the fact that I was not a guy standing on a soapbox telling you should drink it this way or have it that way. It was a much more collaborative experience for me. So that collaboration is carried over to what I'm doing now with the Rogue team here, and just getting people excited about Pacific Northwest spirits, and how we make them and what the culture is, and Real quickly, I thought that if you looked back at spirits pre-prohibition, you did have regional flavors everywhere. Every place there was a craft distiller, we call them craft now, but they were just a guy or family with a still, farmhouse that needed to get rid of extra grain, or, didn't want to see stuff go bad. So kind of going back to that, I think is really kind of what I'm seeing with the whiskey craze now, as we've maxed out, many brands you can find on the shelves and all the things we see out there. I really felt that, whether it's New York State rye or Kentucky bourbon or Pacific Northwest single malt, which is really what we do well up here. It's all got a place. And I think there's a palate for all of it. And the great thing about now is you can go pick up a bottle of Rogue whiskey in Kentucky. You can get a bottle of, a great bourbon in California from, a maker anywhere down the road. So that part's very exciting for me. And so that's kind of where I ended up here, is to help building some new brands up here and get some excitement going with the Rogue stuff.
Well, and I was going to say, folks that might be listening to the podcast, they might go, wait, Rogue, that sounds very familiar. And obviously, like I joked beforehand, they have the ale side of things, and that's kind of how they got started. And you might think of Dead Guy and different things like that is probably what most would know about across the U.S. But Rogue Spirits has actually been around for a little while, a little longer than I thought. Getting launched back in the early 2000s. How did they get started? Why did they get kind of going in that direction and add that side of things to the brewery?
Yeah, for sure. When we started distilling, in the late 80s, as the craft beer kind of really got going, we started brewing consistently then, out of Southern Oregon. And then in the early 2000s, in one of our pubs, we had a public house in Portland where they put a little still upstairs and started to try and make rum. It was just that craft mentality of like, well, why can't we make rum? Why can't we make spirit? And, Rogue's kind of motto has always been dare, risk, and dream. And these are the things we kind of bring to the table every day when we make our products. And that culture started out there. And again, really took about, 6 or 7 years to kind of get going on that. We eventually ended up going down to Newport in about 2006, which is where we currently brew all our beer and distill all of our product. We're right on the coast of Oregon, central coast of Oregon. And that kind of culture of how we brew beer, we're still very connected. The brewery, we think of ourselves as more of a craft beverage company now. You're eventually moving away from Rogue Spirits. It's really just going to be Rogue, because we know our brand is strong across the board, because we obviously make a lot of beer. People know us regularly when we go out and say, oh, I didn't know Rogue made spirits. Well, and we have that conversation we're having right now. Well, yes, Rogue makes spirits, and we've gotten very good at it. And so we're really trying to excite people about all the things we do, whether it's a canned cocktail or whether it's a great whiskey we're making with a cool port finish, or whether it's a really awesome beer. All of our product is very, down to earth and really approachable for consumers across the board. So we love introducing people to our history. So now we most of our product almost all of our product is made, distilled, and brewed. Everything is done down in Newport. We bottle all our stuff. We actually have our own cooperage where we make our barrels, called Rolling Thunder Barrel Works, where we have a couple gentlemen down there who just make a barrel a day. A little bit more sometimes, but that culture again is carried over to how we do things, and we love it. We love that being exciting people, not only the Pacific Northwest when they come and travel and drive down the Oregon coast, and you see how beautiful it is. That there's a beer for you to experience that. There's a whiskey for you to experience that. There's a great vodka. There's a great gin that's all natural and locally sourced. Those are the things we really like to talk about.
Well, and I was going to say, it's really interesting too, because I feel like the more I've dived into this, I begin to realize how many are like Rogue, where they are kind of now a craft beverage company, and they've been that way for a while. I never knew with Dogfish Head, Ranger Creek down in Texas.
Yep.
I mean, you name it. There are a lot more than I can think of at the moment. But how closely are you guys tied? And when I say that, the spirits and the beer side, obviously you have Dead Guy Whiskey, Rolling Thunder, kind of. So you have some cross branding. But I mean, does it go beyond that, or how tied are you guys?
We're very connected to the brewery still. I mean, the brewery basically sits across the Yaquina Bay is kind of where we have our facilities, and the brewery is on one side of the bay, and the distillery is on the other side of the bay. And basically, what we're doing is we are, we're taking all the wash we get from our beer. When they're making beer, the Dead Guy beer, which is our flagship beer, we take that wash and we use it to make our whiskey. And so whether we use a barrel like a Rolling Thunder stouted beer barrel that it held, Rolling Thunder stout for us, then we take that and drop our dead guy whiskey into it, or one of our single malt whiskeys. So we do have some variations we do, but we're very intimately involved still. Like I said, they're brothers and sisters to us, and our beer team is very involved in what we do, and we're very involved in what our beer team does, because we're ideally trying to get people who have tried Dead Guy Ale, maybe, because we can get Dead Guy Ale almost everywhere. That's a brand's very well established. It's really proper. When you see our Dead Guy whiskey in a back bar, we've got that little Dead Guy, a pewter top, kind of like you see the Whistle Pig, Boss Hog top. We've got a Dead Guy topper that looks like our classic Dead Guy. So beer drinkers can see it and recognize it and know that there's quality there, and that a lot of those flavors you recognize in Dead Guy Ale have come through in our whiskey, which is really cool.
I was going to say, how cool is that? Because I've gotten to try a few different things where people have turned, the malts or whatever, the kind of the recipe for a beer into a whiskey. And just, like if someone's going to give that a try, like, are they kind of going to go, wait, I feel like this is Dead Guy beer, but got a little more potency.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely some shadow carry there for sure. Like, you realize you're in the shadow of the same product. Again, I think that, to me, the culture of being a whiskey person, that, that culture of taking the wash and being able to, because really, we make, every distiller basically makes beer right up until the moment they drop it in their still, right? So as we all know, that kind of, to me, is like the flavors like cocoa and vanilla and molasses that Dead Guy is kind of known for, and the beer really gets, it really becomes concentrated in our whiskey. And what we do special with our whiskey is we have, or for us, to me, it tastes very special, particularly with our ales too, is we're right on the ocean, we're right on the bay. So our rick house is unlike, a Kentucky rick house where they're really cooking it. They really want that swell going in those barrels. Really on the Oregon coast, it stays pretty temperate. We've done some cool temperature and kind of pressure and some humidity samplings inside of our rick. And it's really very similar to Islay, in Scotland, so a lot of what I call the Hebridean coast effect, or that maritime effect, really gives us salinity and a kind of almost like a salted caramely kind of taste to our whiskeys. No matter what we make, it seems to come out that way because of the way our barrels are breathing in that salt air. And it's very unique. And it's something about making single malt. Oregon has an amazing agriculture, community. And so they provide us amazing amounts of grain, and that are, two row malt barley that gives us very, very special flavors. It's very malleable. It really seems to blend very well with the environment we make it in, whether it's sometimes there's a little bit, there's craft and there's art when you're making whiskey, right? And sometimes there's where that connection is a little blurred. I find that particularly in the course of Northwest whiskey, particularly, not just us, but some of our partners up and down the coast, where you taste the whiskey and you start to realize it's really about the place and the people and the culture. And that's kind of very, very clear with our Dead Guy whiskey, which is kind of cool.
I was going to say, I mean, you kind of touched on it, because I've had discussions with others. People kind of forget that obviously the climate can do different things to that barrel. Down in Texas, it might not take 4 years to get a 4-year-old whiskey taste. It might take 2 because it's blazing hot. And then, maybe up north, with some snow and cold in the winter, that can obviously slow things down. So you kind of touched on it, but what does that Pacific Coast kind of bring to it, in terms of the aging process for y'all?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Northwest it's got a pretty, well, at least on the coast, it's a pretty solid climate change. You don't see a lot of heavy change. You don't have those huge swings you see in Kentucky. So what we get is consistency. Like I said, a lot of salinity, I think, comes off our barrels, and we're just breathing it in. And again, even on a really hot day on the Oregon coast, you're maybe seeing 80 degrees, high 70s, so it's nice breeze always coming through. But the Northwest in general, like I said, I think we grow, similar to getting corn in the East and getting your great corn mashes in Kentucky or Tennessee. Out here in the Northwest, we get a great barley mash, and it just seems to it's got bright fruity notes that seem to come out. And then the climate just seems to exasperate that. It really brings out flavors that to me, as an experienced whiskey consumer and kind of educator, I was fascinated by those effects I saw, not just our own product, but on some of our other competitors, where I've seen just great things coming through their whiskey, and especially when you start to have a little more flexibility as far as because we're an American single malt, but we're not a defined category. We don't have the strict rules you have in Kentucky about making bourbon or rye or Tennessee whiskey, So as American single malt sort of carves out that niche, I think it's these conversations that we're having today that really explain to people why you should try these things, why they're special, why, if you love whiskey, you would really find a whiskey that you could really enjoy from the Pacific Northwest, because it has those flavor variations that we start bringing a pork barrel into play, or a nice Pinot Noir barrel from somewhere in the Willamette Valley, right up the road from us here. You really see flavors that, again, I think you'd have to get a lot longer in the barrel and other places to get those flavors to come out. And in the Northwest, it seemed to kind of spring out, which is amazing.
I love to see it, because it's something that I think, especially as someone gets maybe a little deeper into kind of the whiskey bourbon world, to start to really dive deep into where the products come from in terms of just the grains, the how the mash bill is set up, everything like that. And you touched on it. Obviously, you guys have the Dead Guy whiskey, the Rolling Thunder, but you have those single malt as well. And can you talk a little bit about those? Because I feel like that's, like you said, a very unique thing out in the Pacific Northwest that a lot of you guys do, and do very, very well.
Yeah, I mean, the single malt is kind of where I think our bread and butter is as a whiskey maker here in Oregon. We've done a couple special ones. We actually just gotten some great awards at the San Francisco Spirits Awards this year. Just got announced the last couple of days. Rolling Thunder, our whiskey, it's got a double gold. Basically our single barrel projects, which are usually American single malts for us, that were special barrel finishing. So it's a single barrel project for us usually is taking a single malt, 100% malted barley, Oregon based, and we're taking it and we're aging it, and probably something from our Rolling Thunder cooperage initially, something with a standard number 3 char. And then we're taking that whiskey and we're secondary finishing it, which a lot of people do. And you see very commonly in Scotland, which is, kind of American single malt is sort of mirroring that. You can really get some great mileage out of the malt when you decide you're going to finish it in a pork barrel or a Sauterne cask or whatever. One of our latest ones is an Amarone dessert wine cask from an Italian dessert wine. Absolutely delicious. Drinks much older than it is. If you blinded someone on it, you would think you were drinking a 12 to 15-year-old, Scottish single malt, but it tastes amazing. We have a single malt that was done really special for us. It's called Morimoto, for Chef Morimoto, who is an Iron Chef. He has his restaurants around the country. And he was so excited by some of the things we were doing with our single malts that he asked us to make a single malt for him. And so we did, and it was a really fascinating one. We dried the grain with about 10% of cherry wood and alder wood when we were malting our grains. So that Oregon barley really just took on the cherry wood and then some of the alder wood notes. And when we distilled it, even though it was a very small percentage of the malt, it just tastes amazing. Creme brulee and vanilla and cooked sugar and flavors you would not expect to taste if you were just saying, this is an Oregon single malt with a big blank spot in your head knowing what it tasted like. So I found that what we can do with Oregon single malt is it's a very variable product. And to be honest, we're just kind of getting going. We're hoping that the category is defined. COVID kind of put a lot of that stuff on hold. It affected us in a lot of ways, obviously, like it did the entire world. But for us, it was production issues where we were making sure we could still source quality product. We did own our own farms at one point, rogue farms up until pre-COVID. We grew most of our own barley and our own our botanicals, honey for our beers, and cucumber for our gin. COVID kind of put a crimp on that, but we still have our great relationships with all of our Oregon partners. So very high quality local product that allows us to make really special spirit. Dead Guy whiskey is kind of our flagship, but our single barrel projects and this kind of we roll forward, the things we're doing it gives us a lot of runway to have some really cool stuff.
That is awesome to hear. And you kind of touched on it too. You guys aren't just on the spirit side. You're not just the whiskey. You have a gin and a vodka, and they're kind of unique in some aspects, or at least maybe unique to what people would think as being some of the base ingredients of them. Can you talk a little bit about those?
Yeah, for sure. We have our other 2 main spirits we do are a gin, which I consider to be a very solid West Coast gin. Not juniper heavy. Ours is a cucumber forward gin. Just won double gold in San Francisco a couple days ago, so we're really excited about it. It's got 9 botanicals. But the really special thing about that is we have some really cool ways of getting those flavors to come out. We use about 100 pounds of fresh cucumber every time we make our gin. So about 100 pounds gets hand peeled and put in within 48 hours of getting into the property. We get it peeled, it ends up in the still, and we're getting these great cucumber notes from it. But we also have the traditional stuff you see: ginger and orris, angelica root, juniper, all those things you traditionally see in a great gin, which makes ours very special. Again, very true taste of Oregon. And our vodka, which is clean, 100% corn-based, 6 times distilled, really, really fun stuff too. Gluten-free, so everybody in their health issues can always be confident with it that it's going to taste great. And we actually use those. We use the vodka now as the core base for our canned cocktail line. So allows us to keep that. We call our vodka Bayfront vodka, and our gin is called Farmhouse Gin. So Bayfront vodka has really got a cool story about just how we make things on the Bay and how we are really connected to our community in the Bay. So portions of our bottles of Bayfront, or we give back to cleaning up our beaches in Southern Oregon. So we really are protective of our environment because we know how much that affects not only our lives but our products. So even from a pragmatic point of view, having a clean bay is very important for us in our branding. And so a local nonprofit called Solve does a lot of cleanup on the Oregon coast, and so we're intimately involved with them. And we actually have a beach cleanup set for a week from Saturday down there, where team members go out and we help clean the beach, and we really get involved with our community. And Rogue is such a great employer here in the state of Oregon, not just in the Pacific Northwest, but Oregon in general. So giving back and letting people know that our commitment to quality is not just about our product; it's about our communities as well.
Well, and it sounds like, obviously all those awards, things are going very well. And you also touched, you guys now have canned cocktails. That's kind of, I feel like the booming side of the spirits world. And I thought when I was looking through it, you guys, everyone kind of has those typical flavors because, obviously want to have something that everyone can expect. But I feel like you guys kind of step it up a little bit. And I don't want to say go wild, but definitely go different than one might expect, or maybe that's just a West Coast thing and I'm just not used to seeing it out here in Kentucky.
Yeah, we've got some unique flavors. Again, like you said, canned cocktails was kind of like 5-6 years ago, that was a very limited thing. There was not an actual canned cocktail. And I think combination of the industry looking for new revenue streams and looking for new ways to engage with consumers, or maybe weren't going to drink straight spirits or cocktails, a canned cocktail gives a mobile opportunity. And I think COVID definitely sped that up and got people drinking at home and go, hey, I want to pick a 4-pack up, and what could I do in the time I'd be mixing a cocktail? I could just crack this great cocktail open. And overall, the industry's gotten much better with it. Ours are very unique. Again, high quality. All of our canned cocktails are 7.5%. They're derivative from our vodka base, so it's not a malt beverage. It's definitely vodka based. So it has a cocktail note to it. But we do the classic stuff with just a little tweak on it. Makes it our Rogue kind of signature. We have a great cranberry elderflower and soda. So not just a vodka cranberry, but a cranberry with a little bit of flavor to it that would not just be the bite of cran. We've got some lemonade iced tea, which is a beautiful Arnold Palmer, just for those people who kind of want to have that Arnold Palmy kind of feel. And grapefruit and vodka sodas, which are, you crack the can of our can and just get this nose of pith and grapefruit and really kind of fun stuff. Moscow Mules or espresso martinis, or we have a new seasonal one coming out called a peach berry fizz, which is going to be really fun. Our cans are really sharp looking and well branded. And we've kind of grown into it. We have some very creative people who work with us here at Rogue, not just on the production side, but in our marketing and our kind of our PR teams, who really give us some fun packaging and some fun things to play with. And again, I've really enjoyed watching how people grab our canned cocktails. We're just not expecting them to taste as good as they are, and they do. We pour them over ice, and you couldn't tell the difference if it was made or not.
Well, and like you said, it's easy to whether you're just wanting to get out and about, maybe explore the coast or explore wherever you're at. It's perfect for on the go, and you're not carrying around a whole bunch of things. And as I kind of get toward the end here, you guys do a lot of stuff in house. I know obviously the farms are no longer part of it, but you still work locally with a lot of folks. I mean, you have the cooperage. Why are stuff like that so important to y'all to have, whether it's a connection to just you all doing it kind of in house, or at least being just not too far away from where y'all are located?
Yeah, I mean, I think the creativity is really in the DNA of our company. Even before there was doing spirits, the creative nature of Rogue in general, I think is carried through to our day to day, and that's kind of the people we have working around. It's why I came to work with Rogue, is to be, be involved in this stage of the brand development, where you're working with really cool, really engaged people who are passionate about what they do. I think what Rogue brings to everything is we have, especially with the way we make our products, is we have a high level of authenticity. There's nothing fake there. We're not hiding behind anything, packaging or a weird story that it seems made up. Ours is very authentic. We've grown up, and we've had good times and bad times, like everything. As craft beer has risen and fallen and risen again. We've always been kind of doing the same thing, just innovating and pushing the needle forward and making sure that people understood how we do things. We're about to change our bottle lineup for Dead Guy whiskey, which is very exciting for us. We're about to get a nice, more muscular bottle. It looks like the Jura bottle, I always say. If you've seen those whiskey bottles, kind of that rounded shoulder bottle, that will have the dead guy pewter on top. And because this is us responding to a crowded whiskey category, but hey, we want people to recognize our products on the shelf. We want them to know they're drinking the quality Rogue product. So it's having dead guy on top. It's having a good color splash in the label saying, this is original dead guy, or this is Rolling Thunder dead guy, or our wine cast finished dead guy. So we've got these 3 new lineup kind of packaging changes coming out this fall, which we're really excited about, because that's going to give us, I think, we're hoping for that national presence. We're in about 35 states right now as it is with our spirits, all 50 with our beer. But the goal is to get the spirit vision out there. So people ask those questions. Rogue, like I said, is more of a craft beverage company now as opposed to just a spirits company or a beer company. And we want that integration and we want people to understand our authenticity and that we really are passionate about what we do, whether it's sourcing materials or giving back to our community or keeping our beaches clean, or being involved with young people as they come up and want to intern in a place that's really kind of fun and exciting. We think that's all part of why we make great products. So you can't take one away or add one to the other. I think it's all kind of it's a synergy that we have that really it's very special. Again, that's why I wanted to come to work up here in Portland and wanted to be part of this community.
Well, and like you said, you got some really cool things that are going on up there, and folks that like me that have gone kind of from the beer side, still in the beer world, but also love the bourbon and whiskey. It's kind of the perfect marriage because you get to try something that I kind of know what that is, and you kind of have that easier step in, and they can go to rogue.com and find you guys on social media for more info. But you kind of touched on it. Obviously, kind of got a maybe, I don't want to call it a rebrand, but maybe a refresh on the bottle. Anything else fun coming this year for y'all that you're allowed to say on the recording that you're allowed to say?
Yeah, I mean, like I said,
I don't
keep your eyes peeled.
trouble.
Again, we're really happy about the new bottles coming out and getting people introduced to Rolling Thunder as a barrel finish. We've done very well with that product in the past. That's the fun one. Some special releases. Keep an eye out for those single barrel projects. Our goal is to start. We're in that stage of our whiskey development now where we're finally getting enough barrels. We're how it is to make whiskey. Obviously, it's a huge investment in time and money, and the two of them are tied together. So you're making a bet on the future when you lay down whiskey. Whether you're in Kentucky or in Oregon. So it's kind of like, well, you can't find a lot of Pappy 23 around, right? 23 years ago, no one really cared, so the distilleries you couldn't find old rye, for a lot of times until about 10 years ago, distillers started realizing, hey, we can distill rye more than once a month and actually sell it now. That's kind of where we're going with our special projects and moving forward is now we've got a good runway to see that we're going to be around and we're going to keep making spirits the right way. So we can invest more in our own business and invest more in what we're doing. And it's like, whether it's a new canned cocktail line or whether it's a new bottle for our dead guy or whether it's getting into some countries that have never had us before, or some states that never had us before. We want to introduce the best products we have. And often it's like we're leading with our single barrel projects or our special bottles or our straight dead guy whiskey, which people just love when we bring it out. The older, we'll start seeing some age statements get a little bit older, hopefully. And we'll, as everyone does, start really seeing, like I said, some special things that we can. I probably can't talk about them all right now in the recording, but you can keep an eye on Rogue, rogue.com and see what we're doing and kind of staying engaged with us that way. Again, we have a very fun company. I can't stress that enough. It's, dare, risk, dream is our motto. And we really, we live that every day, whether we're making the whiskey or whether we're selling it or whether we're talking to people at a bar. It's all tied together for us. So we're really just happy we're here and we're still in all the uncertain world we live in, that we can still make great American single malt and great products,
Absolutely, and I love to hear that, and it sounds like some fun things and great teas because it's just another reason to keep a lookout for all you guys on social media and go to rogue.com for more info. John, this was a blast, and I appreciate you sharing the story of Rogue and the exciting things you guys have coming in the future.
Awesome, Jonathan. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Keep doing what you're doing, man. This is how we spread the word. This is the stuff right here.
I appreciate it.